Welcome. What up, though? We're back in the building. I'm a little late. My landscaper is around here, and it was all kind of noise. I didn't want to, subject you guys to my landscaping, antics. So we're here now, though. So we're in the building, back in the building. And welcome to another bold and unfiltered episode of Mortgage Mayhem Podcast, the show where we cut through the headlines, challenge the narratives, and break down what's really impacting your money, your mortgage, and your moves. I'm your humble host, G Money, and today's episode is stacked. I also have 4 new mortgage and real estate hacks that you can use to fund your next deals fast. And in our deep dive, we're going to talk about Lima One Capital. Lima One Capital has been around for a while, so I just thought it would be, just to kind of jump out there and talk to them a little bit. But before we get started, let's kind of do a little house cleaning. And then we'll jump into this thing. I'm glad to be back, guys. What's happening out there? It's a crazy world. There's a lot of crazy things that's going on. I just seen. Well, we'll just get into it. Let's chop it up.
Welcome to the Mortgage Mayhem Podcast, where the mortgage game meets real life, real talk, and a whole lot of chaos. We break down the deals, the drama, and the data behind the scenes of real estate finance, with a twist of street smarts, savvy, and a touch of madness. Before we dive in, here's the deal. The Mortgage Mayhem Podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are not attorneys, CPAs, or licensed financial advisors, and nothing you hear on this show should be taken as legal, financial, or investment advice. Always consult a licensed professional before making financial decisions.
All right. I hope you guys heard that. Always reach out to your higher ups before you start to make any kind of investments. Find you somebody who can actually help you out. Well, anyway, let's get into this thing. We got a lot to cover. I just seen that the Senate just passed the big, beautiful bill. So everybody's in an uproar. Medicaid cuts galore. Tax cuts for the rich galore. So maybe by the time we roll back around here this time next week, we'll be able to kind of get into it. I know they was going back and forth. Trump and his ace boon coon. Elon's been going back and forth, threatening each other to the point where Donald Trump said he was going to, kick him out the country. So it's just been crazy, man. I've just been kind of looking out on the landscape, and it's, I don't know if his objective is to kind of make the country seem and look like it's a totally different type of country, but that's what it's kind of, leading up to. So let's get into this thing. We're going to soften it up a little bit. We got Diddy talk, Diddy's jury, verdict alert or verdict, alert. Thingamajigga is going on right now. The jury has Diddy's case, so any minute they could find him guilty or not guilty. So that's going to be interesting, to say the least. But let's kind of talk shop a little bit. Speaking of shop, let's talk shop. Where are we at here? No, that's not it. Nope, that's not it either. My bad, folks. We're going to jump into this thing. Here we go. The United States is currently facing a barber shortage. For every 2,000 males, there is only one barber, according to labor stats, which is crazy. So according to the labor stats across many regions, the barber industry is facing a staffing shortage, even as demand continues to rise. Staffing and apprentice gaps. A 2023 survey by the National Barber Association found 72% of shops are struggling to find qualified staff, and nearly half report high turnover. In the U.S., barber schools are seeing decline enrollments, and many owners have difficulty finding reliable apprentices. Rising demands and job opportunities. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics projects 7% job growth for barbers, hairstylists, and cosmetologists from 2023 to 2033, faster than 4% national average, translating to roughly 89,000 annual openings, largely due to retirements and turnovers. The industry forecast expects 45,000 plus new positions for barbers and related roles in the coming decade. Wow. Okay. So it's one barber to 2,000 males. That's diabolical. I got my own barber. I usually try to, find me a barber as, in my area, and then I become loyal to that bar until I decide to, move somewhere else. And even then, I find myself going back. But, after a while, you just, like for me, I had a barber up in my hometown, and I moved probably about 45 minutes away from my hometown. And initially I would like run back down and, get my hair cut, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I was like, you know what? I put out an APB on local barbers, and I just happened to find a good one, who I could trust in, having me looking right every time I sit down in a chair. But when I think about it, when I'm talking to him, we always just talking about business, so on and so forth. And, he never really made it seem like there's a shortage of barbers because, in his shop, he probably has about 5 or 6 barbers. I don't think there's really any chairs that's unavailable. So maybe he just got the hot spot. And others, in other areas, not so much. But yeah, this is something I just wanted to kind of bring to the forefront because, like when I do this, man, when I pick the articles that I want to talk about, it's just, I want to talk about things that matter. It may be small things to you, but in the scheme of things, it might be big to somebody else, right? So I try to pinpoint articles to, talk about current events. We talk about the everyday, what's going on in the world items, but we also like to sprinkle some things in there that, most folks probably are not talking about, but the articles are going out and I just happen to come across it because I have, some good sources that bring some good information to the table. And I just like to present, that information out to the body just to educate. We're educating people here, right? And that's what we're doing here on this podcast. It's current events, it's, hot topics, but it's more educational. And we like to do upliftment here at the Mortgage Mayhem podcast. Yeah, we get a little messy on certain things, but that's why it's the mayhem. It's the Mortgage Mayhem for a reason. We don't want to play it safe. We want to just talk about whatever we want to talk about. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. This platform is a platform where, I don't have 1 million followers. I don't even have 100 followers right now. But I'm just going to keep grinding until, we get them subs up, we get the audience up, on YouTube, my YouTube shorts that I put out, we're probably averaging about 1,000 views. So we're getting some looks, but, we want to, make it bigger. And as time goes on where I can, invest back into the podcast, then, we may get better cameras. But right now, nobody thinking about that. We're just here doing the show, once a week, and we're going to, maybe at some point add that second show. I'm kind of going back and forth, when I should do that. Monday just was, it was just too much for me because I'm a busy person. I got a lot going on. So my Mondays, they're just so hectic, where I couldn't just, stay focused on the show and everything else that I got going on. I got closings, usually typically on Monday. I'm submitting. We're underwriting, we're reviewing new deals regularly. So I just like to take Monday. I don't do anything. I don't go to the gym. I don't do anything. I just, just strictly focus on getting the business tight. We got another business as well where, we got our own independent living facility and we do home care. So it's just a lot going on this side of the table. So, but anyway, let's keep it moving. All right. This is always good news right here. All right. Where are we at? There we go. Being a millionaire is kind of middle class now after home prices and 401ks have soared, creating 24 million new millionaires. Most of the money is in liquid, causing families to live check to check. That don't even sound right. Okay. So most of the money, like I said, isn't liquid. This is the part that got me the most, causing families to live check to check. So you're a millionaire. If that's the case, I am too. If it's just real estate, then you're still living paycheck to paycheck. That part I don't agree with, don't understand, but let's get into it. Not too long ago, being a millionaire meant wealth, comfort, and financial freedom. Today, that status has quietly shifted. Thanks to surging home prices and booming 401ks, more Americans are hitting the $1 million net worth mark. See, that's the key right there. Net worth. 24 new millionaires, but most of this wealth is tied up in homes and retirement accounts, not spendable cash. This has given rise to a growing class of asset-rich, cash-poor families. Their homes may be worth $900,000, and their retirement accounts might push them over the $1 million threshold, but their checking accounts tell a different story. With everyday expenses, mortgages, taxes, and inflations eating away at monthly income, many of these households are still living paycheck to paycheck. Being a millionaire doesn't guarantee financial freedom anymore. In fact, it's starting to resemble the new middle class, one where wealth exists on paper, but liquidity and flexibility are in short supply. Right? So, well, in this case, I let me just give you my 2 cents on it. If you got $1 million in assets, then you got $1 million, right? Because technically, if you just sold everything off and just walked away, depending on how much you owe on this real estate that you have, you could find yourself in the millionaire class. But then you're going to put that money right back out because you're going to have somewhere to live. So my thinking is, buy up some real estate, get your network up over over a meal ticket, of course, but then let your side hustles go to work. You can't just be at these 9 to 5s. That's they say job just over broke, right? You don't want to be in that situation. You want to be able to, just for an example, let me just give you my example. We do homes, we do independent living homes, and our goal is always to, as we continue to grow and scale, $10,000 a month is the goal, right? So technically, cash flow 10,000. And then you look at 5 homes doing 10,000, 10 homes doing 10,000, then you're easily at 500,000 cash flow. And then if you take it and scale it up to 10 homes, then you add $1 million, right? Just in cash flow, not everything else that you got going on, plus all the equity in each one of them. See, if you're gonna have a strategy, though, that's just me giving you an example of my strategy, but the strategy should always be have an asset or have some type of business that's allowing you to cash flow the kind of money you want to cash flow on a month-to-month basis, right? That's the key. If you got real estate and you got a 401k and it's taking you over that $1 million, net worth, status, but you're still working a 9 to 5, barely being able to pay your bills, barely being able to do all the things that you need to do to live, then once again, like they said, you're just, a million on paper. So, and that really doesn't count because you don't have, access to that. You got to jump through hoops to be able to, pull the cash out in order to do whatever it is that you do. And that's another thing. If you're sitting on a $900,000 house and you don't owe that much, you need to figure out a way to do a home equity line or, refinance. Rates are kind of high right now. So if you got a low rate, I wouldn't advise that. If you do got a low rate, I would definitely look at a home equity line, but don't do a home equity line without an actual, game plan of what you're going to do with the money. Don't be pulling the money out to go buy the new vet, or the new Maybach or whatever the case may be, whatever your desires are. This is for the folks who are trying to stop living paycheck to paycheck. This is what I'm talking about. Figure out a way that you can create, income streams outside of your regular 9 to 5 paycheck. Not to say you got to stop working 9 to 5. I'm just saying you should have your 9 to 5 and then, your side businesses that could potentially work you out of a job, right? And then once you get that going and it's foolproof, recession proof, always try to find something that's recession proof, especially nowadays with, the craziness that's going on in the world. The economy could just flip upside down like any minute, any second. So you want to do your research and find a side business that doesn't entail, you not being able to still make money if something happens to the economy. So in this instances, yeah, I know it's a lot of millionaires, on paper, that's great, but at the end of the day, that don't matter. It matters in one sense, but in another sense, you want to be liquid. You want to have income coming in regularly, whether you can put back into your businesses or, continue to stack up until you determine how you want to place that capital that you have saved up because of your side businesses. So that is definitely something you want to keep your eye on, right? And then just make sure you're not just bogged down, with the fact that you're looking at being a millionaire on paper, but you barely can pay your bills. It'll drive you crazy. So pay attention. All right. Let's keep it moving. All right. So new surveys reveals what net worth each generation believes equals success, right? So the nationwide so unemployment rates among young college graduates between 22 to 27 is now at 5.8%, higher than the nationwide unemployment rate of 4.2%. And it's at highest level in more than a decade. Young college grads are struggling in one of the toughest job markets in over a decade. The unemployment rate from 22 to 27 years old with degrees is now 5.8%, higher than the national average and the worst since 2012, outside of the pandemic. People like Parwasha Zahid, who finished a master's in data analysis near Silicon Valley, are shocked by how hard it is to land jobs, even surrounded by big tech companies. Despite strong resumes, many grads are falling silent from employers. Several factors are making things worse. AI is reducing demand for entry-level jobs. We done talked about that many a times, guys, especially in tech, finance, and law. Plus, there are more college grads than ever, which means a degree doesn't stand out like it used to. Meanwhile, companies are cautious about hiring because of economic uncertainty, tariffs, and high interest rates. Even big companies like Amazon and Shopify admit AI will shrink their corporate workforces, guys. Some economics believe it's too soon to fully blame AI, but the slowdown is real. Tech hiring boomed during the pandemic when rates were low, but has sharply declined since then. Despite the bleak outlook, experts say that it's still having a degree leads to better pay and less unemployment over a lifetime. But for now, grads like Zahid are left wondering whether their education is paying off, right? So let's look at this. Gen Z ages 12 to 28, 9.4 million. Millennials, 29 to 43, 5.6 million. Gen X, ages 44 to 59, 5.3 million. And boomers, age 60 to 78, 1 million, right? So how I feel about that is pretty, it's pretty basic, right? As time goes on, this is how I feel about it. As time goes on, opportunities, you're gonna have to sharpen your skill set up. Opportunities are available. You probably right now is probably the time where in our lifetime, this is probably the best time for you to be able to go get that bag, make that money. So many different ways that you can go about it, especially with, the internet and social media and YouTube. And look at me, I'm on YouTube right here, right now. Just getting ahead of the curve because I see what's going on. That's why I'm just gonna keep doing my show, keep getting watchable hours. And then at some point, I'm gonna be able to monetize here. Might be a year from now, but after you get to that point where you can monetize, you are able to make money, forever. And this is gonna be one income stream of many. You only got so long to be here on Earth. You want to maximize your time and efforts, so you can kind of build a little something to leave to your loved ones when you're no longer here. So it's important to be savvy, while you're here on Earth and make good moves in order to increase your income. The millennial, as you saw, that number was high because for the first time, they got more access, even though competition is thicker, but they're not 9 to 5 driven. They understand there's other ways to make money, from your side hustles to, your jobs that you don't need a college degree, plumbers, realtors, so on and so forth. So you just got to find something that you're passionate in. When you're passionate about something, it allows you to go hard. It doesn't, when you think about doing it, you don't have to take that deep breath. You want to do it because you love doing it. And the byproduct of love doing something is getting money. You know what I'm saying? That's the key. You gotta love what it is that you do. Like this, this is kind of like my hobby. This is my therapy. I get to do this once a week. I get to, put the show together. I'm a one-man show, so I don't have no help. But to me, this is like what I like to do. I never even thought, I just remember growing up and being on phones with girls or being on phones with whoever. And they always used to be like, man, we love your voice. You got, girls, they might have been souping me up, but you got such a sexy voice, whatever the case may be. And I never thought that I would actually be on the airwaves talking about anything, right? And then when me and my boy, who started the Flint Story, that's my initial first podcast, I kind of fell in love with it. It was, it was fun. It was insightful. We got to interview some great minds, great people. And then once I had an opportunity to kind of start my own thing, it was just a no-brainer to me. But don't think that that's just it. I mean, the day job is, operating and running a private money firm, which I never thought that would be the case, where I could actually be a partner, in a lending African American led lending firm. And then we got our other side businesses, adult facilities, independent living facilities. So I kind of like got my bag of where I can draw my incomes from. And you got to do the same. You got to figure out, we love independent living facilities because we get to give back. We get to help people, who's, somewhat less fortunate, have a safe environment where, we can help them have good end of lives. They don't have to be out here homeless. We're actually hiring people from shelters, so hold on for 1 second, guys. We got something going on Facebook. It's not allowing me to go live on Facebook for whatever reason. So let's see if we can bring it back up. Okay. Guys, I don't know. Our people out there in Facebook land, for whatever reason, it kicked us off. I don't know what happened. Glad I looked up and saw that. But we're here. We've been here now for over, almost 30 minutes. So, you missed out on some things, but, we're here. We'll we got a little piece to go. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. Like I said, I don't know what happened, but we're live now back on Facebook. So apologize for that, guys. When we do a restream at some point today, hopefully, that won't be the case, because I'm recording everywhere else, but for whatever reason, it was a snag. But I was just talking about, the different subgroups, millennials, Gen X's, Gen Z's, baby boomers, and, the net worth each generation believes equals success, right? So this is Gen Z, 9.4 million, millennials, 5.6 million, Gen X, which would be me, 5.3 million, and then your boomers, 1 million. So our boomers are saying this is $1 million is good enough for them. Us, we're saying 5.3 million is what we need to be. The millennial, 5.6 million, right? And then look at Gen Z here, age 12 to 28, 9.4 million. They're lapping us, but this is the potential that they have, to be, successful and live their dreams out, because they're dreaming big. From 5.6 to 9.4, look at the gap between millennials and us, Gen X. Is only $3 million. You know what I'm saying? Well, it ain't even 3 million. It's 300,000. So this is definitely one of those things that we want to keep our eye on. It's pretty, it's pretty good numbers. I'm glad I brought that up just to kind of give a snapshot of, what the world is, how the world is being looked at from the eyes of different generations. But anyway, let's keep it moving, right? All right. So this was interesting, I thought. No, not you, Don, not yet. The Supreme Court rules 6-3 that parents may opt out children out of classes that uses LGBTQ plus characters in books, right? So in a landmark 6-3 decision, the United States Supreme Court has ruled that parents have the constitutional right to opt their children out of public school classes that include LGBTQ plus characters or themes in educational materials. The decisions have sparked significant discussions nationwide, especially among parents, educators, and advocacy groups. Key points of the ruling. The ruling affirms that parents' parental rights over their children's education can, in certain cases, supersede school districts' curricula, particularly when families object to content on religion or moral grounds. Right? This case centered around a challenge brought by a group of parents who argue that compulsory exposure to LGBTQ plus content in storybooks and class discussions violated their rights to direct their children's upbringing and education. The majority opinion emphasized the importance of religious liberty and parental control, citing the First Amendment and long-standing precedents around family autonomy. Public reactions to response has been sharply divided. In support of the ruling, conservative and religious organizations have hailed it as a win for parental rights and freedom of consciousness. Signs reading "Let parents parent" and "Let kids be kids" have been prominent at rallies supporting the decision. On the other hand, civil rights and LGBTQ plus advocacy groups warn that the decision could lead to increased stigmatization and exclusion of LGBTQ plus people and themes in educational environments. They argue it undermines inclusive education and sets a precedent that could erode civil protection for minority groups. Broad implications: while the ruling does not outlaw LGBTQ plus content in public education, it permits parents to opt their children out of the certain materials or classes, potentially prompting schools to reassess how much content is delivered. Legal analysts suggest that the decision may open the door to further challenges regarding curriculum control and could affect how states and districts approach issues like race, gender, and religion in schools, right? So to me, it's a conservative world we live in right now. The Republicans are in control of everything, including the Supreme Court, right? So, of course, gays and things of that nature, they don't believe in that. They think everybody should be straight, and then you find out a lot of them be involved in, this type of lifestyle on the down low, right? And when it comes to the kids, I get it. Some people, to me, it's still it's still kind of taboo, and not to me. I mean, it is what it is, but for the most part, it's still somewhat taboo, especially to conservatives. Um, you know, they're not factoring in that's the ways of the world now. So you want to kind of know what you're dealing with, and the only way you're going to be able to do that is be educated on lifestyles. To me, but I get it. Some parents that's more conservative have more of a religious background when it comes to homosexuality, or LGBTQ issues. They're not so much thinking about that. They don't care about that. They want the world to look as if it's pure, but behind the closed doors, they're into doing just as much dirt as the next person. So I think it's a good thing to have that option, because the information and the lifestyle is so controversial. Other people, we've come a long way when it comes to these issues, but we haven't come that far. It's almost like, I want to compare it to slavery because that's a bit much, but at the same time, you kind of gotta be respectful of everybody. So if you got some folks who don't believe in it, and you give them an option, then I think it's okay. I think the Supreme Court may have done the right thing. But at the same time, we gotta kind of be conscious of the environment that we're in now. We're in a very conservative leaning, especially, as far as it looks. Now, behind the scenes, something probably totally different. Like I said, it's probably a lot of down low individuals who's practicing, down low religious individuals who are practicing the lifestyle. But, when the cameras or when it's time to, put forth how they actually feel, then of course they're going to, throw the book at it and still continue to do whatever they're doing behind the scenes in the closet, so to speak. So I think it's a good thing because we still got a ways to go. Some people still, have homophobia. Some people, still and, honestly have their religious beliefs. So to be able to opt them out, to not, disturb classrooms, and, at the same time, we want to be, looking at what's being served out to our kids too. We want to make sure that it's not information that's going to, I guess, guide them into a lifestyle that they wouldn't have normally been guided into if they didn't have all this access to, the lifestyle information that, schools are looking to put forth. So I'm 50-50 on it, to be honest with you. I get it, I understand, but I just don't like people rights to be violated because, we come from a world of having as colored people, as African Americans, as Black people, we're used to getting our rights trampled over. We fought, just our ancestors fought viciously to be able to, give us equal rights, and they're still not all the way equal. So I get it from that community, the LGBTQ plus community. They're individuals at the end of the day. But you have other folks who have not, all the way bought into that lifestyle. So we don't want to just discriminate against them and not have them have a voice. So I think this is, kind of good down the middle, and it's just going to have to be the schools who determine, how much, and, figure out a way that they can be compromising to all parties involved. That's how I feel about it. All right, let's keep it moving. All right. Where's my boy at? Let's talk shop. Nope. Here we go. Crypto baby. So California, that's the governor, has passed Assembly Bill BAB 1052, allowing the state to seize unused crypto after 3 years of account inactivity. Passed unanimously in June 2025, the law extends unclaimed property rules to digital assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum. If you don't log in, trade, deposit, or withdraw for 3 years, your crypto can be declared abandoned and turned over to the state. The bill now is heading to the Senate for a final vote, right? So Bitcoin is just, it's the new currency. From every indicator that I can see, it's the new currency. You can't just be sitting there. It sounds, until they get more rules and regs on the books, they're just trying to sniff out, it's almost like they're trying to create the market, right? They don't want you to just sit on crypto. They want you to at least be engaged, because to me, it's almost like wink, wink. This is about to be the new currency. And we're going to have to start setting some rules now. And it'll get to the point where just like your money, you can just have your money in the bank. You don't have to access it. You don't have to do anything to it. You get to it when you get to it. We're not there with crypto yet. We're still trying to figure it out. It's still a complicated medium. But at the same time, we got to start making some rules. We got to start laying down some laws, so it can really become a legitimate currency. Without laws and, things of that nature, then how is it going to become a legitimate currency, right? So I get it. Hopefully this is a wake-up call, and I think this is going to be like the incubator of figuring out what crypto can and cannot do. California, because California is almost like it's like a country within itself. So huge, so many different people, so many different aspects of, the economy, and it's Hollywood on top of that, so it's always going to be somewhat of a testing ground, for new currency. Crypto being a new potential digital currency, and they're just setting out some rules. They're getting people to get engaged with their crypto. You're sitting there, you got crypto, you're just kind of sitting on it. It's almost like it's allowing you, is going to force you, to get engaged, and by you being engaged, then it allows you to figure out different things, different ways, to advance what you already have, create more crypto, lose crypto. It becomes a marketplace of, you figuring out how to, make money from your crypto. It's not saying that they're just basic log in, take a look at it, trade it, add more, whatever the case may be. They just want you to have some kind of movement and not just sit there and, keep it in the wallet as if, it's, excuse my language, an old, rubber that you kept in your wallet when you was like in high school and college, just in case, right? That's not what they want here. They want you to get engaged with this new digital currency, and by you being engaged, then it kind of sets up a marketplace, so to speak, right? More trading, more buying, so on and so forth. So we'll keep our eye on it, and, we'll definitely be reporting everything crypto going forward for sure. All right, let's keep it moving. This caught me off guard a little bit. So the New York Knicks have contacted, I don't know how true this is, but I don't think Miss Staley will allow, articles to be written about her that's not true. So I'm gonna assume that it might be true, right? So they reached out to Coach Dawn Staley about their head coaching job, right? Excuse me. Since Thibodeau's dismissal, the Knicks have spent nearly a month without a new head coach. Reports now suggest the team has approached Dawn Staley, the highly successful coach of South Carolina's women's basketball program, to discuss the role. Staley, a six-time WNBA All-Star and three-time NCAA champion coach, could make history as the NBA's first female head coach if she accepts the offer. While it's unclear how serious the talks are, other names like Taylor Jenkins, Mike Brown, and Micaiah Nora are also being considered as the Knicks aim to end a championship drought that has lasted since 1973. The New York Knicks 2025 season came to a close in the Eastern Conference Finals, where they were stopped by the Indiana Pacers and fell short of reaching the NBA Finals. Even so, their playoff journeys was highlighted by an impressive upset against the reigning champions, the Boston Celtics. Despite guiding the team to a strong season with a 61% win rate since his hiring in 2020, Tom Thibodeau couldn't keep his job and was let go in early June. All right. So that's Miss Staley. I mean, she's a super coach. I don't know how she would be able to do in the ranks of men, but I can see her holding her own. You ain't going to be disrespecting her. I know that much. But professionals making 30, 40, 60, 80, 100 million, that's a whole different ball game than coaching, teenagers or early adults, so to speak, and in this case, females. So you got double. You got to be the first female to do the job. And second, you got to have the wherewithal to know how to deal with males with super duper egos. I'm not saying she can't get the job done, because I think she can, because she's a fiery coach. She knows her X and O's. She was a player herself, so she knows, the ins and outs of, what that world looks like. Even though she's a female, she's been at the highest level. And she understands, the world of basketball. So it's just an interesting, ploy that now, women have come such a long ways that they're potentially getting opportunities that in the past only men were, apt to get. So we'll keep our eye on that one as well. But congratulations, Coach Staley, for even being recognized and mentioned. I mean, she deserves it. She's a fighter. She be fresh to death. And she just seems like she has such a good spirit. So we'll keep our eyes on it. If something, happens, we'll circle back and talk about it. All right, let's keep it moving. All right. Where's the University of Alabama at? All right. I'm sorry, guys. There's so much going on here. I got to kind of go through it to find what I need to find. Nope. All right. Did I bring that up? I might have not brought it up, y'all. Sorry for doing this to you, but this is my show, so. All right, so anyway, let's just keep it moving. Because for whatever reason, I can't find what I'm looking for here. All right, so the University of Alabama has terminated a privately funded scholarship. There we go. Nope, that's not it. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. The University of Alabama at Birmingham has terminated a privately funded scholarship established in 2013 by the family of Dr. Herschel Lee Hamilton, Birmingham's first Black board-certified surgeon, created to diversify the medical profession in Alabama by addressing both racial and economic barriers, right? Meet Jerry Starks. So the University of Alabama at Birmingham terminated a privately funded scholarship that was established in 2013, like we said, and the University of Alabama at Birmingham terminated the Herschel Lee Hamilton MD Endowed Scholarship in Medicine, a privately funded scholarship established in 2013 by the family of Dr. Herschel Lee Hamilton, Birmingham's first Black board-certified surgeon, after facing federal pressure and a Department of Education investigation into race-based scholarships, right? So basically, we're just, it's just DEI on steroids, right? So if you are successful in whatever walks of life and your family wants to give back to, folks of your same ilk, brown people, black people, the way the government is being set up now, that's no longer going to be the case because they look at it as you're being biased, right? You can't just give back to your people who, you trailblazed and went out and did what you had to do, and now you want to give back to your people. The new government is like, if you're not white, you don't have a fight in the race, bro. That's just how they're looking at it. Anything that, once again, we got to go back to, we've always been behind, and we was slowly but surely, catching up and putting ourselves in positions to win. And, the social fabric of the world, I would say white supremacists of the world are looking at, the gains as fear. So when they figure out that, they understand, they've had a front row seat to see that anytime we get access to anything, we end up rising to the top, right? Unless there's forces within that's stopping us from actually doing that. But they have enough, examples to see that if we get these mofos an opportunity to even the playing field, not only will they even the playing field, they're just going to fly right past us and be dominant in, all these industries that they've always claimed as their own, right? So scholarship giving is now a problem. You gotta open it up to, to everybody, or, they have all kind of scholarships for this or that. And as soon as we create scholarship for us, then, here we go with the whole DEI. They have the audacity to say that it's potentially infringing on civil rights of others. And that's just, insane, So we'll keep our eyes on it. That's so unfortunate. This guy, probably before, he passed away, he probably, put this in his will, put this in his, his family members' brains and minds that, once I'm gone, this is what I want to do. He's in Birmingham, so that's his, stomping grounds. And the University of Alabama at Birmingham is saying, we don't care how great you were. We're not about to allow you to set up a privately funded scholarship to help other Blacks potentially do what you did, because you weren't even supposed to do what you did. I can't even imagine. He probably spit on, probably call all kind of N-words just to make it, probably was being prejudiced against as he was, trying to move it forward for the, for the culture. And this is the things he gets, right? So we'll keep our eye on it. But Dr. Herschel Lee Hamilton, Birmingham's first Black board certified surgeon, congrats to you and your family. Unfortunately, I hate that you guys have to go through this just because, you're putting forth a scholarship, and the administration is looking at that instead of you being able to get gains for you and your family and your community. They're looking at it as race-based scholarships. So, like I said, we'll keep our eye on it. We'll report back if any up and coming new news comes to the forefront about it. I don't like it though. I don't like it at all. All right, so let's switch it up to some good news. Sorry about that. That's not it either. Where we at? Here we go. All right. So, black man owns a luxury home building company in Indiana. You know, we like to do this, guys. We like to bring up individuals who I think is thriving, just kind of shine a little light on them. This guy builds dream homes for families across the Midwest and is now currently building a 140 plus acre subdivision. Meet Jerry Starks at Starks Signature Homes, a visionary real estate developer creating opportunity where it matters most. His largest project spans over 140 acres on the southeast side of Fort Wayne, Indiana, a vibrant, historically underserved community of Black and brown families. This new subdivision is more than just homes. It's about building legacy and ownership, right? So this is our guy, Jerry Starks, guys. So if you want to kind of reach out to Gary, if you're in that Fort Wayne, Indiana area, I know that area well. One of my best friends went to college there. A couple of my friends actually lived in Fort Wayne. So I know the area well. I did a lot of dirt myself down in Fort Wayne in my college days, going back home with my friend and frat brother at the time. So I know Fort Wayne well. Fort Wayne's kind of like some of the cities here in Michigan. It's a factory kind of town. A lot of factories there. Somewhat of a college town. But yeah, to see this guy down there doing this big one is huge. So like I said, a lot of times this guy's, Jerry Starks, I don't know him. He don't know me. He'll probably never see this video either. But we just like to shine a light on, individuals who, in my mind, we think is doing a great job, right? All right, so let's keep it moving. All right. Let's see what this crazy boy right here is doing, man. I don't even know. So breaking news, the U.S. District Attorney's Office is investigating Detroit Pistons guard Malik Beasley on allegation of sports betting, sources told ESPN. One of the NBA's top free agents, Malik Beasley, is now under investigation by the U.S. District Attorney's Office over allegations of gambling on NBA games and prop bets during the 23-24 season, while he was with the Milwaukee Bucks, according to ESPN. Beasley, now with the Detroit Pistons, has not been charged. His lawyer, Stephen Haney, told ESPN an investigation is not the same as charge. That's true. Malik deserves the presumption of innocence, just like anyone else under the Constitution. The NBA has issued a statement saying it is cooperating with the federal investigation. Beasley and the Pistons were reportedly close to finalizing a 3-year, $42 million contract. Wow. But those negotiations have been put on hold amid the investigation. My boy Malik, come on, man. This is crazy. Anytime I see any NBA rich $1 million a year, multi-million-dollar a year player with the opportunity to make even more millions, what are you gambling for? What are you gambling for? You already won the ticket, the lottery ticket. It's that much greed going on in the NBA, NFL, NHL, whatever, these major sports, organizations that's paying players multi-million dollars. And you got the audacity to be out here gambling like you're not going to get caught up. They're watching, bruh. And I've been watching some highlights. I've seen a couple, fishy things that they said you might have did because the point spreads or whatever the case may be. My boy, why would you go out and jeopardize your family generational wealth on a couple of basketball games? bruh, you knew you was about to get multi-millions and you out here gambling, your pockets can't be that low. You got a bag coming to the Pistons. You got a bag at the Lakers. I mean, wherever you gone, you got in the bag, so you gotta have multiple digit millions in the bank. And you out here gambling, bro. If that's the case, allegedly, man, don't let it be true, bro. Because if it's true, whatever happens, bro, it needs to happen. Because that's ridiculous, man. You know you up for a contract. You just had a great season with my hometown team, the Pistons, and you out here, gambling, bro. That don't even make no good sense. And it lets when you do things you're not supposed to be doing, you can easily miss out on generational wealth, man. So we're gonna keep our eye on it. Like we said, it's allegedly right now. But Michael Beasley, you're on the clock, bro. And I really doubt if you're gonna be able to go back and get 42 million. That's probably then decreased substantially now. And you run the risk of being kicked out of the league. Was it worth it? I don't think so, bro. I really don't think so. You just had a good season. You a baller. You got a sweet jumper. They showed a couple things. Like, it's just sketchy, bro. I mean, it's your word against theirs unless they got concrete evidence. And if they putting forth the case like this, more than likely they got some evidence. I get it, you're innocent until proven guilty, but they're not messing around with you just because. They got something. We'll see if that something is what they're claiming it to be, but they got something. You best to believe that. They're not about to be messing with you for nothing, especially you got some M's. So they know you could go to war. But if this is the case, man, I don't know, man. But you on the clock, bro. We definitely watching you, bro, for sure. All right, let's keep it moving. All right. Where are you at, my boy? Because you got a lot going on too, my boy. Where are you at? All right, so I know we touched on a little bit at the beginning. So one of the juries in the Diddy trial reportedly cannot follow the judge's instruction. Earlier yesterday, they reported that the jury deliberation started in the Diddy trial. Well, just 2 hours into the deliberation, the court was informed that one of the jurors were having issues with following the provided instruction. According to TMZ, one of the jurors, juror 25, a 51-year-old gay white man with a PhD in molecular biology who studied veterinary sciences, was reportedly having issues in the deliberation room, leading to the foreperson sending a note to the courts claiming he cannot follow your honor's instruction. Diddy's defense team suggested telling the juror that it was still early in the process, while the prosecution suggested further explaining the juror's role in the case. About 30 minutes later, Judge Sumrarian sent a note back to the jury, reminding them of their duties as jurors and their obligations to follow the law. He then allowed them to continue deliberating. Right now, it's unclear if this is beneficial to the prosecution or the defense, but insiders tell TMZ that they believe the juror could potentially be leaning towards not guilty on at least one of the counts. All right? Yeah. I mean, this whole Diddy thing, like, it's just been a mess, right? And now we at the end. Diddy Diddy's Diddy, so he's going to, and he should. He's fighting for his life, But man, they got so much stuff on Diddy. I just don't really see how he's going to be able to wiggle out. Not to say that is not possible, but man, Diddy, you've done your big one on this one, bro. And the feds, we all know, what is it, 98.99999% ratio on getting, the people that they go after. And they're definitely, I don't know what you did to people. I mean, we know what you did to the people you love, so to speak, or the people that was around you. But business-wise, you must have rubbed somebody the wrong way, my guy, because they're trying to take it all from you. And from the looks of it, they may have done just that. It's on jury watch right now, guys. So if you want to chime in and kind of go on YouTube and, look at different live broadcasts. I know I was, my guy, the Flow Show No Filter. He does a lot of great breakdowns of everything. Has been on this whole Diddy thing for a long time now. Tisha Tell, she does a big one. JLR, I like his live broadcast. So everybody's on jury watch right now. So if you want to chime in and get more Diddy information, you can do just that. We'll keep our eye on it. By the time we come back here, a verdict will be, I'm pretty sure, out, and we'll know Diddy's fate, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more at that time. All right. All right, so that's it for our hot topics today. We're gonna do a couple of our mortgage hacks that I love to do. Then we're gonna do a deep dive on Lima One. Lima One is one of the ones that's out here in the industry. They've been out here for a long time. They've just been one of those lenders when everything else has failed. They, for whatever reason, they kind of stay put. So, we definitely like to, talk about them. So, but anyway, let's talk about our 4 new mortgage and real estate hacks for investors. Hack number 1, use your DSCR loan to your advantage in rent-rich areas. Target cities where rent is rising faster than home prices. And the reason being, DSCR loans are investor, refinance loans. That's just based off of the rents. So this was like heaven sent to investors, because a lot of times investors didn't have anywhere to technically go to be able to pull equity out of these investment properties so they could purchase more properties and continue to build their portfolios. And the industry came up with this DSCR loan for that purpose only. Make sure you're in areas where the rents, make sense. The rents are rents that is going to allow you to be able to, cash out when it's time for you to cash out. All right. Bridge loans from regional lenders, often more flexible than national ones, faster approvals, and local knowledge. That's so true. Like, I don't even be up here trying to brag or whatnot, but I'm closing deals every day almost. I discovered a lender here locally in Michigan that has allowed me to do a lot of business with my investors here locally. Less red tape. They can pull up on the property, no appraisals. It's just a great program. And my guys, that I deal with, I mean, they're just the best. And let me tell you exactly, I don't know how I'm not remembering them right now, but it'd be like that sometimes. Next bridge funding. I don't like to give out a lot of my connects, but since we're sitting here talking about them, I just thought, because I do a lot of business with them locally. So that hack is a great hack. The bigger banks or bigger lenders, nationwide lenders, it's just a lot more red tape. It takes a little bit longer. I got, as a lender, we got capital partners who are bigger, and it's just the process is just a longer process. I'm going back and forth with lenders right now, or capital sources right now about time frames and things of that nature. So that's definitely a great hack. If you can find someone local, that is ideal for bridge lending, right? All right, leverage business credit for fix and flips. Use your LLC credit profile to protect your personal credit while scaling. And this is great for investors in general. You don't have to put these properties in your personal name. They're all, I don't even lend to people in their personal names. You have to have an LLC because it does protect your personal credit, because these particular properties in the LLC doesn't go on your personal credit. It will, though, if for whatever reason you get foreclosed on or something of that nature, then you run the risk of, that debt being, because even though you put these things in, these properties in the LLC, you still have to personally guarantee these properties, or personally guarantee these loans. But that ain't what you're in it for. You're not in it to, have your properties taken away from you. But if something happens, you're not held liable personal. Of course, you got insurance on the home. But, being that the property is in an LLC, you can continue to buy properties and you can continue to manage your personal credit without those properties being on your credit report. So it's key. Leverage your business credit for your fix and flips. A great hack. Private money refi after rehab. Don't leave cash on the table. Refi fast after you stabilize the property. And all they're talking about is the DSCR loan here. Once you get done rehabbing, then you're supposed to be refinancing into a DSCR loan, which is basically a bank loan, lower interest rate. You typically can leverage out to 75-80% on those. This is the route to go. This is part of the BRRRR, process. If you holding your properties, building your portfolio, then this is the way to go. As soon as you get done rehabbing, you don't want to leave no cash on the table. First of all, you've gotten all your cash back from the refi because you're participating in, our bridge program, which goes up to 90% of the purchase price, 100% of the rehab. But the rehab is in the rear. So, as soon as you, finish a phase, show proof that you did the work, you get your actual money for that particular phase back into your account. And by the time you're done with your rehab, you've recovered all your rehab funds, right? And then at that point, you want to go directly into a DSCR loan so you can cash out on the ARV value now from your rehab. That should bring in, additional cash that you can take and bank it or take and put it into your next investment. And you get a lower interest rate because typically the private money, bridge loan is typically a higher interest rate because it's interest only. Once you do that, this is the route you got to go. So these are some great hacks, man. Like I said, you get 4 hacks every episode. 15, 16 episodes now. So do the math. You got a ton of hacks just sitting there for you to access as you become, or if you are in the process of trying to determine if you should become an investor. All right. So that's that. Let's keep it moving. We're going to bring up our loyal co-hosts, our segment host, our deep dive host. There's another way you can put it, and they're going to break down Lima One. So let's add them. Okay. There we go. All right, let me pull myself. Let's add. Okay.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into it, plunging into the world of private money lending, specifically how it works for real estate investors. Our main source here is Lima One, they call themselves, the nation's premier lender for real estate investors. Quite a claim. So our goal for you today is really to, cut through the marketing jargon, pull out the key stuff from what they offer, and just give you a clear picture of what they do and maybe how it could fit into your investment plans.
Exactly. Think of this deep dive as, well, a shortcut for you, the learner. We're not just listing services. We want to unpack the nuances of how a lender like Lima One actually operates, what's really in their toolkit, and maybe most importantly, what makes them stand out. Because let's face it, it's a crowded market out there. Understanding these kinds of specific solutions, I think, can be a real aha moment for investors figuring out funding.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. So starting basic, what is private money lending when we talk about real estate? And, why go this route instead of, say, a regular bank? Lima One talks about customized capital solutions. What does that actually look like? Who are they for?
Well, it's interesting because Lima One seems to cast a pretty wide net. They say they provide capital for, and I quote, everyone from individual real estate investors to retail mortgage brokers. So not just the big players.
Okay.
Our sources show they work directly with four main groups. First, obviously, the real estate investors themselves, their core. Then mortgage brokers and mortgage loan officers, people who bring deals to them, and even referral partners. So a pretty broad ecosystem.
Mhm.
And they claim this wide reach is possible because of, well, a mix of things: specialized loans, practical know-how, and good service. It's all geared towards helping all these different folks succeed in their real estate ventures, whatever their specific angle is.
Right. So it's about matching the funding to the strategy. That's where it gets interesting for anyone trying to, grow their portfolio. They promise these specialized loan programs to hit your goals, finding the private lending program to fit your investment strategy. Let's dig into those specific loans because they seem to cover quite a range, which speaks to that flexibility you mentioned.
Absolutely. They really seem to aim for a solution for every strategy kind of approach. So first off, you've got fix and flip loans. These are described as flexible. They simplify the approval, which is key for moving fast. You know how crucial speed is in this market.
Definitely.
They also help you maximize leverage and, importantly, allow you to pivot. Plans change, right? And under this umbrella, they also mention fixed to rent and bridge plus. So that flexibility seems kind of baked in from the start.
So if you decide halfway through you want to hold it instead of sell it, they have an option. What about building new stuff like ground up construction?
Good question. That leads us to their new construction loans. Lima One says they specialize in vertical construction financing. That's basically building upwards. And specifically on infill lots, those empty plots within already developed areas or shovel-ready land that's fully permitted.
Gotcha.
And that covers single homes or bigger developments. So scale doesn't seem to be an issue.
Hmm.
And again, build to rent and bridge plus are mentioned here too, showing options for both build to sell and build to rent plays. You have bridge plus itself. This seems like a really versatile tool. It's pitched as ideal if you need to close super fast, maybe grab an off-market deal, or just buy yourself some time to get your ducks in a row before a longer-term loan.
Okay, like a strategic pause button?
Kind of, yeah. And it's available for builders and rental investors, so it bridges different phases and strategies.
Makes sense. And for the investors focused purely on rental income, building that long-term wealth, what are their rental loan options?
Right, the rental loans. These are framed as flexible and versatile too, giving you the leverage you need and the reliable capital you want.
Hmm.
This breaks down further into three types. You've got portfolio rental, that's for financing multiple properties together, which can really streamline things for bigger investors.
Mm-hmm.
Then single family rental for Well, just one unit at a time, more focused. And interestingly, short-term rental loans. So they're specifically catering to the Airbnb VRBO market, which definitely has its own unique cash flow patterns and needs.
Okay, so they've clearly got a wide menu, but like you said, the private lending space is crowded.
Right.
What did our research uncover about the Lima One Advantage? What actually makes them different when you're comparing options?
Yeah, this is crucial. What sets them apart? They highlight a few key things. First, capital stability. This is a big one. They're backed by MFA Financial, which is a publicly traded REIT, a real estate investment trust.
Okay, and why does that matter to an investor?
Well, it means their funding source is potentially more stable and consistent than, say, a smaller private fund that might rely on a few wealthy individuals. In shaky market conditions, that kind of stability can mean the difference between getting your next draw funded on time or facing delays. It offers, peace of mind.
That's a really important point, especially now. Okay, what else? They claim to be a one-stop shop. What's that mean in practice?
Right. Their second advantage. They say their team handles every detail in-house, from your initial application to your final payoff.
Hmm.
Basically, you're dealing with the same core group throughout the process. That should mean smoother communication, less running around, maybe faster turnaround times because they're not waiting on outside parties.
Okay.
Third, and this is potentially a game changer for a lot of investors, practical underwriting. They literally say, keep your tax returns and income analysis.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. We base our approvals on your credit, liquidity, and investment experience. That's a massive difference from traditional banks focusing heavily on your W-2 or recent tax returns.
So it's more about the deal and your track record.
Exactly. They're looking at the asset, the project's viability, and your experience as an investor. This could be huge for self-employed folks or people whose income isn't straightforward on paper.
That really does shift the focus. What about how much you can actually borrow?
Good point. That's their fourth advantage, significant borrowing capacity. They set your max exposure at 7 times your liquid assets. The idea is to empower you to act fast when you see a good opportunity without needing to constantly jump through qualification hoops for every single deal. It's a more holistic view of your capacity.
Okay, so we've got the advantages on paper, but how do they actually deliver? They talk about customer experience and specifically mention in-house construction management and in-house servicing. How does having that stuff in-house actually, benefit the borrower day to day? Does it make the process smoother?
That in-house structure seems pretty central to their whole service promise. Take the in-house construction management. Anyone who's done a rehab or build knows draw requests can be a pain point, right? Slow draws mess up schedules.
Oh yeah, big time.
Lima One claims their process is streamlined for speed to liquidity. They actually guarantee funds in 4 days or less. Oh, think about that impact. Faster money means projects stay on track, you reduce holding costs, keep your crews happy. It's significant.
4 days is quick. Okay.
Then there's in-house servicing. They don't just originate the loan and then sell it off or hand you over to some giant servicing company. They say you get assigned a dedicated Lima One analyst who sticks with you, provides personal service for the life of the loan.
So a single point of contact.
Supposedly, yeah. A direct line for questions or issues instead of getting lost in a call center shuffle. And this all ties into their overall claim of industry expertise. Their team is meant to act like an extension of your team, using their specialized knowledge to help you solve problems, maybe navigate tricky scenarios that a generalist lender wouldn't understand.
It definitely sounds like they're trying to address common frustrations for investors, and the numbers seem to back up their experience. Our sources mentioned 26K plus closed loans since 2010 and over $10 billion plus loans funded. That's a lot of deals.
Yeah.
They operate across 46 states, right? Just
Yep.
worth noting for everyone listening, that's USA only, excludes Puerto Rico and Alaska.
Correct. And it's not just about the money either. They also seem invested in educating investors. Their website has an industry insights section with blog posts on practical topics, things like how to use equity in real estate for success, or key takeaways from industry conferences like IM and SFR East, even practical guides like insurance for house flippers.
Right.
So it shows a commitment beyond just lending. They seem to want to be a resource for the community too.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the big picture takeaway for you, the listener? Our dive into Lima One suggests they're a private lender deeply focused on, well, the specific needs of real estate investors. You've got a really diverse set of loan products, fix and flip, new construction, various rental types, combined with these unique advantages. Things like that practical underwriting, which is a big one, the stable capital source, and the in-house teams aiming for a smoother experience.
Hmm.
It seems like a package designed to offer reliable capital and tailored support. Hopefully, this gave you a clear, concise look at this major player.
And maybe one final thought, a question really for you to chew on after this deep dive. Given Lima One's big emphasis on practical underwriting, focusing on your credit, liquidity, and track record, not just your tax returns, how might that approach fundamentally change your strategy for finding and using capital? Especially if maybe you don't fit that perfect traditional borrower box. How could working with a lender like this potentially open up new doors or maybe speed up your whole investment journey? Definitely something to reflect on as you think about your own goals.
All right, guys. That was Lima One Capital. Great company. I've done a lot of deals with them in the past when I was a broker. Good company. And the main thing when you're looking for these type of, private money lenders is if they can perform. And Lima One has always sent them commission wires to that account. So they not only have good products, good people, they close, right? They issue that clear to close that we as brokers, we as capital providers love to see that clear to close email come to our inbox. So Lima One, that was our deep dive today. Thanks to my correspondents. We really appreciate what they do. We're probably one of the only podcasts that has that kind of deep dive segment as a part of, the programming. I know a lot of people may not be paying attention once you kind of get a grip of what it is that we do here at the Mortgage Mayhem podcast. That is one thing that's vital, us being able to break down these companies that you could potentially be doing business with. So that's Lima One Capital, guys. And that's going to be the wrap on another episode of the Mortgage Mayhem podcast, where we covered everything from, the Diddy trial to, just all the different antics that's going on as far as headline news. We covered it all. And if this episode gave in, we also covered the deep dive on Lima One Capital, sharing their insights for every real estate, for every real estate investor to hear. But if this episode gave you any kind of insight, value, or a little fire for your next move, hit subscribe, share it with a friend, and don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your humble host, G Money, and remember, don't chase the bag, build the blueprint. And I'll see you next week at the same time, same channel. So you guys have a great 4th of July weekend that's coming up. Be safe out there in these streets. I know I will. I know next week, will come, and then the following week I'll be on vacay for a couple of days. Can't wait for that. But in the meantime, in between time, be blessed. Love you guys out there, and I can't wait until you guys, chime in and be a part of the Mortgage Mayhem, team, so to speak. But in the meantime, in between time, I'm out.